Hey everyone, how you doing? Coach Fleischer here, Kinesiology 214, and we're still in basic program design concepts, and I've talked a bunch about these general to specific, simple to complex, stable to unstable, machine to barbell to dumbbell, and also a little bit about combining modalities, but really the big ones we've talked about over and over and over again are the first four that are there. And this presentation is designed to shine a light to those and offer a little bit more clarity to what that could look like, because sometimes it's hard to kind of see that abstractly. So hopefully this presentation will help to resolve some of that. We've seen this 100 times. We've talked about general to specific, simple to complex, stable, unstable. Just kind of frame yourself around that concept as I go through this presentation. And just keep in mind that we talk about this methodology as you go from general, specific, simple to complex. It's usually not done in a microcycle format where it's a one workout format. Perhaps over a week, like I talked about, if you have a competitive cycle where football is played on a Friday or a Saturday, or the sporting event is one day a week, you can kind of build a general to specific methodology into that in between your competitive cycles. But usually you don't see this in the context of a single workout, single session workout. You'll see it more over the course of a mesocycle, perhaps a micro or a macro cycle, and occasionally a micro cycle, small, when you're talking a week. Now, if we look at this, I like to throw this up here. Let me get my mug out of the way, and I'll put myself right smack dab in the middle. You know, as you go into the winter and golf season kind of starts to wind down a little bit, you go to the off season, which would be the off season for golf, which is winter time here in Chicago, and people start to come in and start to ask, hey, how do I work on my golf swing? Aside, people like to work on the driver component and the distance component and not realize that a full third of their game is the putting game, the short game, but that's another story. That's more technique oriented when they're on the course, and it's more specific training methodology as opposed to generalized training methodology. But usually you'll see people come in and perform this exercise over here to the left. Let's see if we can get this guy to work as they rotate. Yeah, a little bit of a low high movement pattern. And that movement pattern, that low to high from the right hand side to the left hand side, that does help in terms of general overall strengthening of rotation. It's very transverse plane oriented, but we know the golf swing itself, it's not transverse plane, it's actually a multi-plane, or what's commonly referred to is a diagonal plane as you swing across the body in a diagonal pattern. So this, if we were to look at this again, is not a bad exercise. It's just more general and simple. If we go ahead and look at this one, I love throwing this one in my golfers because usually it just kind of blows their mind in terms of a golf swing. With a golf swing, there is a segmentation that happens, right? That has to happen when the hips actually articulate. And this takes a little bit of practice where you have to have people sitting on a physio ball and have them actually articulate around to get accustomed to finding their hips. I mean, quite frankly, these people sit in a chair all day and they're talking on a phone or they're working on a computer, and it's like they have forgotten where their hips are. So usually you have to get them on a physio ball first to have them kind of sit and mobilize first and get accustomed to articulating. And then this exercise, when I hit the play button, pay attention to the hips, pay attention to the pockets on my shorts. And you'll see how they articulate around while this stays still. So in a golf swing, the loading parameters are very heavy on that front knee, and you want to work on some transverse plane movement patterns across that knee. But more importantly, as you're articulating in this exercise, hips, that lead hips coming around. Now, what we'd like to do optimally is in that position, work on the hip mobility, work on the hip strengthening, a segmentation of the hips, and then have a golf pro come in and refine that movement pattern even further. Like you take them right from this piece of equipment, walk them out onto a golf course, or take this piece of equipment and walk it out onto a golf course, have them do the exercise itself for some overload, and then contrast that with an actual golf swing so they can apply that movement pattern right in. So now if we take this a little bit further, we take it over to the next slide. Yeah, get that mobility. You can see the differences on us. Now, if we go into the next slide, if you pay attention to this gentleman's hips on the right, with his lime green pants, if you watch the belt, watch how the hips articulate. I'll play this first so you can see this in the exercise itself with the hip articulation. Hips, 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 hips. Now keep in mind, that exercise is being demoed with the hands in the static position down in front. You can do that exercise if they do a two-plane swing, if they can do this with the hand behind and work on the rotation across. If they do a single plane swing where actually the hands are a little bit higher up, you can work that and have them hold that hand position while they actually articulate the hips. It depends what you want to do. Usually this is enough to get your clients to understand hip mobility and hip articulation. So if we now take that, we go into now completely, scroll myself up here, completely specific and very complex. Think of the progression we just had through these four exercises, or three exercises, excuse me. Watch his hips. This is slow-mo. Pay attention to the hips as these guys articulate around first, and then the club head follows. Baseball, golf, very much the same. Hips and hands anytime you swing an implement. It's this one here. You see the hip swing through. Watch the belt. Here comes the hips right now. Snap, and then the club comes around. It's the hip articulation that actually causes that club head to accelerate. I think this next gentleman is great example, because you see it from the right hip slightly behind him. Now they articulate over to the side, which is dynamite. You can see that hip rotation come around, the right pocket go away from you as he's rotating. So notice we started off with a transverse plane exercise, or Phil, a transverse plane exercise going horizontal. We then went to a hip mobility exercise where we actually articulate the hips, and then we jump into this. And this guy's really super slow. I'm gonna let this play out because if you really watch this gray here with the belt, watch that snap. Now they're swinging through and the club is not following through. So you get the idea. This is 5 minutes long. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but you definitely get the idea of how you can take a client from general to specific, simple to complex. If we go ahead and bump over to the next slide here, think of it like this. Let me get my face out of the way here so you can see me, hopefully. Tuck me up here in the corner. You can see on this, we went from a very general and simple exercise. We transitioned it into little education, hip re-education, and mobility, and then we put it together on the golf course. General to specific, simple to complex. And these guys usually will start playing as soon as they hit all the buttons. Go back one here. So now look at this. Here you have a freestanding squat, which is very stable, and the apparatus to the right, and I hope this works because when I copied this over, it was just the actual squat movement on a BOSU, and it looks like it jumped it jumped to the full menu in my YouTube library, which is kind of a bummer. Yeah, it sure did. Let me see if I can get it up here real quick. I'm gonna put you on pause. Okay, so we're back. Yeah, it did. It actually, you can see up in the corner here, this is video 18 out of 28. You can click this right here and it'll give you the entire playlist of BOSU exercises. I have 28 of them in that library, and it's, believe me, not exhaustive. You can do a ton of different exercises on BOSU. But notice how here, squatting on the floor, it doesn't get more stable than that. And now we compare that to, stop buddy, squatting on the BOSU on an unstable surface. Stable to unstable. We've now used an implement, integrated in an implement to work on a different modality. And this will just play through as I'm talking here. And the modality itself, or the implement we used, was a BOSU to create an unstable environment. Let me pause this. I don't want to go through the entire playlist, but if you want to, you could do this and just get the entire library. So let's just crank on through this. So now we go into this. And it looks like there's a lot going on here, but let's break this out. So on the left-hand side, you have we're going to have a dumbbell chest press exercise, then a barbell chest press exercise, and then a dual action. Okay, so now looking at this from the left-hand side, and it did the same thing on here, just so you know, you have the full drop-down menu for all the exercises. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in and re-upload these correctly so you don't have to try to scroll through to find the exercises. But you have on the left-hand side, you have a dual action pulley, supine chest press. Middle, you have a barbell bench press, and to the right, you have a dumbbell bench press. If you look at the one on the left, pretty darn safe. It's a piece of equipment. You can drop the handles. They're not going to fall and break your nose. In the middle one, on a bench press, you're using both hands to move the implement. On the right side, with the dumbbell bench press, you have one hand is working independent of the other. And so it's forcing one side of the body to contract equally, right? Because you have to push the same weight, but adapt on both sides. So if we play this out, just notice where the resistance is coming from on here. It's actually coming from down and slightly to the outside. For this, resistance wants to pull that bar, it's gravity, straight down to the floor. Here, resistance wants to pull those dumbbells straight down to the floor. So the difference you have in here is just where the resistance is being offered. So let me just play this. And yep, play this guy. Oh, get me back in the gym. I can't wait. Press, press. And then we go over here, dumbbell. Still chest. All three of them are chest exercises. You're just hitting the chest a little bit different. So I mentioned before in one of my previous presentations, I had one workout that I did where I did smorgasbord workout, all body parts each day, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But on Monday, I would do something like dual action pulley. Wednesday, I would do something like barbell chest press. And Friday, I would do dumbbell chest press. Machine, barbell, dumbbell. Really easy combination, really easy way to go ahead and work through that. So now if we go ahead and jump over here where you can combine some modalities, and the jumping through with those modalities. Okay, so with these two, we're kind of combining modalities. We have the BOSU that we used before for our squat, but now we have a medicine ball in hand. Here we have the dumbbells that we used for our chest press before, but we're doing so on a physio ball. So we're combining modalities, and in this case, we're increasing the requirements and the demands seen in balance and coordination, and we're kind of progressing in that area of the exercise, and we're really, in a way, being forced to regress on the weight side of it. So let's go ahead and play this real quick. Squat to shoulder press, squat to shoulder press. Medicine ball goes nice and high, raises my COG, forces me to balance on that BOSU. And now we go over here, physio ball, dumbbell bench press, supporting the shoulder blades. Yep. Keeping the glutes tight. We have knee, hip, and shoulder all in a straight line like a tabletop. And we're doing our presses. All right, so on this one, same movement pattern, but we've had to regress on the weights because we've progressed in another area on the instability side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in and notice you have this drop down here in the video. I'm going to change that so you guys don't have to go fishing around for the video. I don't know why it uploaded, but I'll re-upload these videos into this presentation to make sure it's done right. In terms of general to specific and simple to complex, it's dictated and driven by what it is you're trying to accomplish. If you're a wrestler, you're trying to work on your wrestling skills. If you're a golfer, you have to work on your golf skills. And your library of exercises as you progress through a workout program, that mesocycle will include maybe generalized strength training on the front end, more of it. And then as you get closer and closer and closer to actually a competitive event, and you make it through the doldrums of winter and you get ready to go play golf in the springtime, you make the exercise workouts more specific to golf, more flexibility oriented. You're working on that hip mobility exercise that we showed earlier and other stretching exercises that are specific to a golf swing and work on that kinetic chain and the movement pattern that is included in golf. And you'll find as we get a little deeper into this course, we'll talk a little bit about fascia and fascia lines and how it's all interconnected and it kind of holds everything and interconnects everything in the body and allows movement to happen, and how forces are transferred through fascia. But for right now, just understand as an interconnected unit, as somebody who's going to be working with a client, you know your clients are going to come in and ask you about golf. You know you're going to have clients come in and ask you about specific training adaptations. And you have to be able to use these different tools to be able to do that. All right, guys, I'm signing off with that. I'll catch you later.